Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Mad Murcielago Madness. This car that I purchased from a viewer. He bought it at auction. It was the cheapest Murcielago ever sold, and he sold it to me for even cheaper. So it's the cheapest Murcielago ever sold. And we've got about a month and a half to have it ready for SEMA. In today's episode, we are gonna figure out how do we finish off our 3D printed body kit parts so they have a perfectly smooth surface ready to take a mold from. We've got to come up with a process, and then we've got to do it for about 8 different custom parts that we've already made for this car. We're also going to work on modifying the rear hatch so it is cooler. Yep. And then we're going to also start building some custom taillights for this build. And we're going to talk about the theme of this build. What is the styling that this build is going to be? Yes, it's a wide body Murcielago, but there's a little bit more to that. This one's got a little bit more depth to it, and it's making it very, very challenging, but we like a good challenge here. So let's get started. Getting started, we're continuing work on our body kit pieces. So we've got a few pieces that are final. We've got the 2 rear over quarter panels. We've got the 2 rear spats. This is version 2 of the front fender, but I messed up on the nose piece. So I'm probably gonna go version 3 over this weekend just to get it nailed in plastic. That way we're not trying to massage the fiberglass too much. It's kind of fun. You can see we got version 1 over there, and we got version 2 right here, and version 3 will be coming shortly. By the end of this episode, the goal is to have all of these finished out and ready to be creating molds from them. We'll see if we can get that far. So where we're at with these right now is we have plastic welded them together with glue in the seams. So they're glued and plastic welded together, and they're nice and strong and sturdy. And then we've just sanded the high spots on the seams, sanded down the high spots, left the low spots. So next thing that we're gonna be doing is coming through with body filler to body fill all of the low spots and anywhere else that might look rough before we sand up again. So Kyle and I are gonna team up on this and start getting body filler on this quarter panel, that quarter panel, and those 2 rear spats. Got our pieces body filled up. Body filler has dried at this point, so we're going to go ahead and sand it down, get a nice sand on it before we hit it with our secret weapon. The secret weapon. The part of this process, it's going to make everything go so much faster than the last time we did this, he said. All right, so life has been a little crazy lately, but I've got a solution for that, and that is Factor. That's why today's episode is proudly sponsored by Factor. Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. Forget grocery store runs, forget meal prepping. These are chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals that are ready to go in just 2 minutes. 2 minutes! And they've got a great variety with over 35 different meals to choose from every week. They've got you covered for keto, for vegan, for calorie smart, and a lot more. Seriously, it is restaurant quality, and with premium ingredients like filet mignon and broccolini, this is way better than overpriced takeout. Plus, Factor is flexible. You can change up your order at any time, or you can even pause it if you need to. Like whenever I travel, I just hit pause and I get it when I get home. And one thing I love is they've got snacks too. They've got juices, got smoothies, they got small bites, keeping me fueled throughout the day no matter what is going on with my schedule. Factor saves me time, but it also helps me make sure that I am eating well. It's something I very much appreciate on these busy days with these busy schedules. I want to keep my health on point so I can be my best. And it does a great job of that. I've personally seen really good results. So guys, check out my description. The link is at the top of the description there. If you click that link, you're gonna get 50% off your first Factor box, and you're gonna get 20% off your next month's order. All you gotta do is use my code BUILD50. You guys are gonna love this. It has personally been a huge improvement to my life, and I highly recommend it. Huge thanks to Factor for sponsoring this episode. We are sanded up, and I can tell you that this next step, the secret weapon, it ain't gonna work all the way, can pretty much guarantee it, but whatever, we're gonna give it a shot. So we're pretty smooth, but in some of our joint areas we've got, you can actually, it's really easy to tell. If you see a lot more Bondo here and a lot more plastic here, it means this piece is high, this piece is low. So for instance, right here where it's all plastic and then it's all body filler, we've got a high and a low. I don't know how noticeable they're gonna be. They're pretty noticeable to the hand. So what I wanted to do for this is to basically do a sprayable body filler. That way we're putting an even coat across the whole panel, and then we can go in and block sand it. When you block sand it, it'll just sand off the high points. That's what I want to do. I don't know if what I bought can do it, because this doesn't say on the tech sheet that it's going to spray thick enough. But this is pretty expensive. It's $180 a can. It's really, really, really thick, high build primer. I think I need something even thicker, but I'm gonna give it a shot anyways. So while Kyle sands up the next one, sanding is definitely the next step so we can figure out where our problems are. So while Kyle sands up the next piece, I'm gonna go ahead, mix up some of this paint, and I'm gonna put it's gonna take a while. It's gonna take like 40 minutes. You're supposed to spray one coat on here and then let it sit for like 10 minutes and then spray another and another and another. I'll probably do like 4 coats, and I'm really curious to see how much buildup I can get, how thick I can get. I'm basically gonna spray this stuff on as thick as I possibly can. I'm using a 1.7 millimeter nozzle out of a new air gun that I bought, and I already lost it. It doesn't matter. Anyways, I'm gonna get to spraying and we'll see how this thing looks after. I'm not sure if this is listed in the Art of War, but I really don't know what to do when your secret weapon turns out to not be a secret weapon at all. You're weaponless. So we got a nice uniform coat on here. I mean, the spraying went well, and you can see that we covered up our layer lines. There seems to be some horizontal lines, and I'm not sure. I guess those would be vertical at this one. Anyways, I'm not sure if those are real or not. I think that's just pattern buildup of the material that we were spraying on here, especially when I see it over here. I don't think that's the plastic showing through. I think that's the high fill primer or body filler showing through, because you can see that they're all the same direction. I don't think the parts are all going the same direction like that. Anyways, the low spots do still seem to be low. I don't know, now they actually seem to be high. Maybe that was a high spot. I don't know. We're not gonna know until we block sand it, but one thing I'm pretty positive, I don't think this stuff was thick enough. At like 200 bucks a gallon, I was kind of marketed as that's like sprayable body filler, and I should get like 0.12 of an inch, like 1/8 of an inch of thickness, and I don't think I got that. If you look, it's always hard to show imperfections on camera, but if you look right there, you could definitely see, and I didn't expect it to fill in any wobbles or make it perfect, actually. The idea is it's supposed to build up, and then I'm gonna hit this with sandpaper, and we should average everything and get a good finish. I'm gonna hit it with sandpaper right now. I don't think it's gonna do anything, and I think I'm gonna be trying to figure out secret weapon number 2. Let's give it a shot. The secret weapon, German. The secret weapon is back on the table. You guys, I'm so surprised, but I was actually able to get some really good results out of this. I think it was actually going on thick enough. We're gonna try some other ideas in this episode, but I do think that this is a leading good idea. So guide coat is, you can get guide coat that's spray on, that's like a type of paint, or we're using a type that's charcoal. You can find it on Amazon, anywhere. I got dry guide coat right there. You throw that on here, and then once you start sanding, all of these dark spots, there are low spots. And then I saw some weird spots that were like, I don't know. So that weirded me out. So I just started moving up to the top, and I thought that this was honestly a lost cause, but I just decided I'd start sanding until I either hit plastic or got rid of the guide coat spots. And to my surprise, there's some like tiny low spots through here, tiny one there, a few tiny ones there. And then all the way through here where we had a bunch of different parts doing transitioning and stuff, I was able to get it perfectly smooth. And then there's like a little low spot right there. And then all the way through here, perfectly smooth until I hit some plastic right here. And then all the way back. And I know this part was just a nightmare. And now I'm just working this part. And I actually just realized and remembered, hey, I forgot to put guide coat on here. So I'm going to put some guide coat on here and get back to sanding. So bonuses of this is it sands up really nicely. And a lot of this is work that you probably should be doing by hand with a block. So you form this to be, you know, around the shape and the curvature and whatever that you're doing. And you want to run it by hand. That way you can really monitor what you're doing. Because if you use power sander, you can just really easily just put waves into things is what I've found out. And you can dig edges into them, and it's a lot of work to undo. So you want something that's going to sand up really fast and really easily and just turn into all this dust that you see on the ground very fast. And I mean, I think I only put about 20 minutes into this so far. So I'm really excited about the idea that we might have figured something out. Not that we're not going to try other stupid things in this episode too, but that is really cool and that's really exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and finish sanding up this stuff right here. And then actually I know there's a nice little lump right here, so I'm going to work on this and see how it goes. This is all looking good, and then this is a little bit of a treacherous area as well. But overall, I do think that we got a decent thickness on this film buildup. Also, there's another brand that we're going to try later on in this episode that does even thicker film buildup, which could be even better. Nailed it. We've got I would call this about a 90% perfect panel. So there's a low spot over here. It's a large low spot. It's going to need some fill, a little bit of filler in some smaller other areas where I burn through into the plastic. Game plan for that is I think I'm going to fill, then sand, and then because I was sanding all this with 100 grit, I forgot to sand this out, but I'll sand that out smooth. Because this is all 100 grit, it's going to need another coat or two, maybe do like a coat or two of more high fill primer that we will then sand with 200 and 400 grit, and then that's it. This panel is ready to have a mold taken from it. I was reading the comments in the last episode. There seems to be a little bit of confusion. Again, these are temporary panels. These will not be used on the car. These are used to make a mold from. Doesn't really matter the longevity of the panel or anything like that. We're just making it smooth, making it the exterior of it be the right shape, and then we make a mold, and then from that mold we create our final piece. So that's really cool. That is one methodology of going about getting a smoothed panel. Smoothing car panels is a thing that's been done since the beginning of cars, right? Like, say you have a large dent, people use dent pullers, you get a bunch of like dimply stuff, they figure out how to smooth that out. There's a lot of different things, but smoothing over large distances is something that isn't done a ton. A lot of people do skim coats with like glazing putty, but in my experience, that stuff is really, really hard to sand off. And where we're differing from that too is, again, that these panels are temporary. They don't have to last the lifetime of a car or anything like that. They just gotta last long enough for us to make a mold properly off of them. So my next idea is gonna be special. I gotta run to the hardware store and get some stuff, and then we'll give it a shot. Home Depot has so many bad car ideas in stock, it is amazing. Next one up, Spackle. That's right, guys, needs a temporary Bondo-like substance. This might work. I got no idea. This is my game plan. I got Spackle, I got a panel. This panel needs intermediate smoothing, basically kind of what we did on the other one everywhere around. But this one was also printed with some more weird wavies where we got actual wavies that were printed in the plastic, and I'm not really sure why. So what we've done so far is hit this with body filler in all the cracks, but I did have a body filler reaction over here where it went badly. Yeah, right there, there, and there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this with the sander, and I'm going to sand up any of these shiny parts so there's no more shiny, slippery plastic, and then I'm going to spackle it, and then I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to hand sand it with the block and see if we get a nice smooth surface that would be ready for a high fill primer. It is the next day, and the spackle is finally dry. This stuff takes forever to dry. As far as drying times go, I think high build primer actually dries faster. This is water-based, so you have to wait for the water to just evaporate out of it. But it's dry now. Let's give it a sanding and see how it shapes up. The consensus is in on Spackle, and although it was an interesting try, I don't like using it for shaping this stuff up. It's really similar to just globbing a bunch of body filler on there or doing a whole glaze coat of body filler and hitting it with a power sander. I find them to be really, really similar processes. Basically, one wrong move or a couple wrong strokes with the sanding pad and you're gonna burn through too much and you can go too deep. So you're kind of back to hand sculpting and worried about creating low spots and different things like that. Also, it has a lot more voids than a body filler would. So I don't think it was a good one in the long run. And we're going to be doing the other process. But to finish this out, I have to keep using Spackle because you can't put body filler over the Spackle, or else not only would it probably chip off because it's just so much harder, you can't sand it because then you'll sand everything around it and it'll be the hardest thing and it will take longer to sand. So anyways, I've got to fill the lows that my guide code has showed me. I know there's just a low section coming right through here, and some low stuff back here and a bunch on the front here. So I'll fill those lows in with Spackle, and then I'll give it one more sand, and then we'll put this in line for painting. While I'm doing that as well though, I'm gonna hop into other things. So this is what we're gonna be doing from here on out. This is what we think is the answer, is a nice wide coat of body fill over every seam, power sand the crap out of that, and then hit it with the high fill primer so it looks like that. We also added a new high fill primer into the secret weapon category. I bought some that is basically online. The specs say that it's better than the other stuff and it's about half the cost. So we'll be spraying some of that today and seeing how it does. But for now, I gotta keep fighting with the Spackle panel. This is gonna end up probably taking a good 2 or 3 hours extra than the other one. But it was worth a try. I'm really tired of waiting for Spackle to dry. If you put it on at any level of thickness, it just takes forever. So not the worst idea in the world, but overall pretty bad idea on the Spackle. Not gonna use that. You guys probably saw Kyle's been gluing and plastic welding things together like a madman. And these are version 2 of the side skirt covers. Let me grab the one that matches this side of the car over here. So this is version 2. It's got a little bit more of a flare that I wanted. It kicks out a little bit more venting in the front of it. And it's a mix between the design that Brad Builds made and the design that I made. It's actually just a direct hybrid of the two pieces. So it's pretty cool. So we're on version 2 of side skirt covers, version 3 of front fenders, which actually test fit up great and whatever. And the first version of the rears actually worked because we cut them in half. So that's pretty cool. We're gonna try and get everything by the end of today in a stage like looking like this, where it's all got high fill on it. And Kyle's gonna keep working on that. He's kind of building out our sanding and painting booth in the back there. While that's going on, we're gonna switch over fabrication style into the back here. So before I start doing anything, to have it make any sense, I guess I have to explain the direction and the styling that this build is going. At least for now, just for now. When I originally got this car and I took delivery of it and I saw the damage on the roof and this side panel over here and things like that, I was like, it's kind of cool. Like, it sucks, there's holes in the car, but the damage is really unique and it was kind of cool. And I thought, it's a modern sports car, supercar, but it's actually got some patina because it has been rolled over. And so since I got this car, I always wanted to do something like a restoration type where we kind of took advantage of the fact that it has so many unique scratches, dents, dings, holes, punctures, things like that. But I also had trouble because I know in the really long run, I want this car to look really clean because it has a very unique shape. And I thought, well, how do we do this? I actually realized something when I was going through the design phase and everything like that, is there's a way to build this car and have a theme and everything, but not go backwards at all on the progression of building it clean, if that makes any sense. So we're not doing anything that's going to take away from getting to the final product, but we are going to do something crazy. So that is, and I've definitely spoiled this online a little bit on Instagram, is the Cyberpunk theme. I've always wanted to try and do this. It's a really, really hard theme to pull off on a car. Here's some of the different designs and inspirations for this car that I've come up with over the last 9 months, working with AI and different tools to find things to help inspire this build so you can get an idea of the theme that we're kind of going for. But what better than a SEMA build to just kind of put it all out there. We're gonna roll the dice. It's rolling the dice big time on this one because it's such an expensive car, and also it looks so bad if you mess this up. So, and we're on a tight time schedule. So I really don't want to mess it up, but I'm also really, really excited. I've got the help of Brad Builds with the designing and 3D modeling. We've got Tofu AutoWorks, who's one of the best known cyberpunk car builders on YouTube. who is helping and consulting for design and aesthetics. And also there's just a million people out there in the world that help us out and come up with great ideas and everything for these cars. I think with all of our powers combined, if I just build my ass off, we can make this into a really, really cool cyberpunk car for SEMA. And then the really cool thing about it is building it to be the cyberpunk way means building a few extra things, but it doesn't mean doing anything to the car that is permanent damage that hinders us in any way from going clean later. So the game plan is to build it, have it be cyberpunk, keep it for as long as I enjoy that styling, and then when I'm eventually bored of that styling, we'll pull the little cyberpunk bits off, and then we will build it to be a wide body Murcielago. I don't know if it'll have the over fenders like what we're doing on this build, or if we'll build our own custom designed over fenders that are a little less dramatic. We'll just take the pieces that we love from what we build and we'll use them, and whatever we don't use, we won't use. So one day this will be a perfectly clean build, and I hope you guys will be happy when it is there. But until then, we're gonna try our hand at making a really cool cyberpunk build that looks like it belongs in a movie from a dystopian future. I've wanted to do this for a really long time. I've yet to give it a really solid try, so this is the try. I hope you guys are gonna enjoy it. So let's get into what we're doing here on the hatch then. All right, so on this rear hatch, cyberpunk or not, I really like the Lambos that have the clear in the rear hatch so you can see the engine. It's such a unique engine. This is not bolted down. It's such a unique engine showing off the V12 in there that I would love for these two middle pieces to be clear. They are just a little shy of a 1/4 inch and they're fiberglass right now. So my game plan is I'm gonna leave a section maybe 1 inch wide, maybe a little less, about that wide on each side of this black. I'm gonna cut those two things out. I'm gonna recreate them with Lexan that we can then bolt in there and there. So when we look down at this engine bay, we're gonna see the Lambo V12. That's not really a cyberpunk thing, but we can incorporate lights into it. Once I get that done, then there is some really interesting stuff that Brad Builds designed that goes right about there. And it's gonna be a nightmare to build in real life. So I'll save that for when I'm done with this. I'm gonna get to cutting. Isn't that just a much better view of the engine? I love it. From each angle, you could see the Lamborghini V12-ness. So next steps for this piece, this is all made out of carbon fiber, and you can see that they use some sort of a coring material. It wasn't pure carbon fiber, and because of it being a coring material, there's all these little cells that are open. So I'm gonna fill those with some glazing putty so we have a nice, strong, flat edge. And then while that's drying up, I'm gonna take those center pieces and use them as a template, the pieces that we cut out, use them as a template on our plexiglass here, and then I'll cut those pieces out of plexiglass so we can get ready to bolt them in back here. I'm gonna make, you can see the back edges on those pieces. It's a little hard to see, and it's a little hard to hear because there's a giant airplane behind me. Anyways, you can see they have a little bit of a curve to them. I'm gonna make them flat, maybe. Maybe not. I actually don't know what I'm gonna do. Guess you'll have to watch and find out. We got the glass cut up, and now it is time to start sanding the edges. So these edges on the side are not going to be seen. These edges on the front, we want a bit of scratch marks, which are going to cause diffusion when the light comes through them. So they're going to be probably sanded, like I already sanded this one by hand a little bit to about 100 grit. I'm going to go to 220, I think, and try leaving that there, 220. Hopefully we won't see scratch marks, but we still will see the diffusion of the light. The back sides of these have to be sanded up really, really, really well to be able to send light through. So the game plan is I have this trim that holds this 1/4 inch plexi, and we can put LED lights behind it and then sandwich the LED lights between the trim and the glass if we want to. It's an optional thing, but I want to prep these just in case we want to do it. And then basically what that'll allow us to do is shoot any color through these pieces of glass. So if you were sitting here looking at the back of the car, we have the third brake light that's up there. And then basically you could potentially see another brake light, red, coming from there and coming from there. So I think it's a cool option to leave open on the car. Just to do it, we got to really polish up the backside of these so the light can get in and it won't diffuse right here. It'll get in and then diffuse on this back edge. So I'll go ahead and clean up all these edges and we should be good to start test fitting it on here. And I gotta sand this guy up too. All right, guys, we are back. It's 2 days later because we made a slight mistake in the shop yesterday. So whenever you're working with plastics and you're cutting them, which means melting them, or you're sanding them, or you're just melting them, just remember that the fumes that those things give off are not good for you. For Kyle, it meant he got a bad headache. For me, I get really bad migraines, and that is the second time in 2 weeks that I have lost an entire day sitting in bed with a absolutely terrifyingly bad migraine for like 15, 16 hours straight of just being in pain. Keep the ventilation going well, keep the respirators on, don't slack on that stuff. If you're getting headaches working or anything like that, that is probably a sign that your body is unhappy about some of the process that's going on. So anyways, I've been having a lot of trouble with migraines lately and it sucks. And the health system in this country blows, so I'm having trouble getting medicine and hope I won't lose too many days because we don't have enough days to spare. Anyways, this is cool. So I cut the glass and then I sanded it. And I said I was gonna stop at 400, but even at 1000, we get this really nice even fog that will catch the light for sure and diffuse it. So that is great. So I sanded it all the way up to 1000, but then on the back sides here, after 1000, I hit it with the blowtorch. And although it's very hard to see because it's a clear piece of glass, that edge is super, super glassy. And that is really cool. And that's what I was going for on that edge, to have it finished nicely. And that'll allow, if we put LEDs snugged up against the back of this, for the light to go into the glass and shoot out and then get stuck and caught and refract and diffuse off of that fog from the 1000 up there. So that's pretty cool. And I'm really happy with the way that that turned out. I'm just trying not to scratch these or ruin these in any way. So I did some glazing putty on the edge of this carbon fibre. I'm gonna go ahead and sand that up so we can get some good edges, throw some black paint on those edges as well. And then I can bolt these pieces of plastic in. We're working on building out our paint booth again, so things are in the middle of the place, obviously, since this is basically on the floor over here. This piece, I did another round of sand up, and then I needed another round of spackle, so you can see the pink starting to wear out of that. That's almost ready to have its final sanding done before body filler. And as we come over here, we're starting to get this area set up. So Kyle got another round of body fill on this piece, and this is good for primer. And all these other pieces are ready for primer now. So we're just getting a spot for everything so we can high fill primer the crap out of everything all at once. Look at all that engine visibility. So this came out really nice. It's obviously dusty and gonna be a total pain to keep clean. I skipped the painting and I counted 6 pieces of hardware because it's 6 per slat. I needed 12. So there's a little bit of to-do work to be done, but this worked out pretty well. You can see I'm still gonna be able to see out the rear view just fine. If I hit the backs of those with LEDs, it'd be pretty cool, but I do like how unobstructed the view of the engine is. So I don't know if I wanna be putting LEDs behind those things just to get the lights. It's possible that I could project LEDs in the corners there where it wouldn't even be able to be seen and it would actually make it out through here. It's very possible if I use a bright enough one. So we'll just have to see how that, or I guess I could go through the sides. If I polish up the sides, I might be able to hit it through the sides and have it bounce out here. But anyways, that is really cool because I just really wanted to have that vision of the engine. I wanted to have it open so you could see it, and I think it looks really, really good. Yes, it's very dusty, but other than that, it looks really, really cool. And now let's go on a journey of the taillight. So the process of creating custom car parts like a custom taillight is now accessible to the everyday user thanks to two things: 3D scanners and 3D printers. So this is a 3D scanner made by Revopoint. They were the first brand that ever produced a 3D scanner that I found that was at the quality that you need to actually make car parts. And this one is called the MIRACO. It's a very, very good 3D scanner. It's in the mid price range. It's not expensive for 3D scanners, but it's the middle price range. So what you saw there was just me walking around the back of the taillight housing for the car, and I need to scan the car and the taillight housing to see what space I got. Next, I got to scan the taillight. But this is all glossy and shiny, and you would normally throw some spray over this and it would dull it up, but I'm at home and all I've got is a little bit of flour. So I baked me a Lamborghini taillight cake. All of the dulling of the flour and everything will allow the 3D scanner to bounce its magical rays off of it and get me a good scan. So this is what the MIRACO looks like when it's at work, just scanning my kitchen countertop and my Lamborghini taillight. This is a really, really good 3D scanner, guys. It's my favorite. I've used it on a lot of things kind of behind the scenes. Huge thanks to Revopoint for providing this to us. Like I said, it's not a cheap one, but it is the price point where if I was buying one and not, having one provided to me, this is the one that I would buy because it can kind of do everything. It does up close really well. It does large objects well. I actually haven't ran into any object I haven't been able to 3D scan with this. I 3D scanned the steering wheel on the boat with this thing. It's really good. So look at the scan that it kicks out. This is its own software, and this is the scan that it kicked out. And for a high gloss object without any tracking dots or anything, this is a really good result. And I'll be able to take this and throw it into my 3D software to work with. So I just export it from here. Also, everything's really easy and nice to export between the device and your computer. And this is the scan that we got from the taillight housing on the Lamborghini. Absolutely perfect for what we need. So I chuck both of those into 3D Studio Max and get going. Basically, the process is you grab the little dots and you delete what you don't need. And basically, you're going to simplify your model down till I have a taillight housing and I got a taillight. Another really cool thing is, and I don't know how they do this at all, but magically they make sure everything is at the exact real world scale. So this scans to a unit of measurement that is real world, and multiple scans all match up. So you can see the scan that was the taillight housing and the taillight both match up to each other, and they're the exact right size that they are in real life. The next step is what type of taillight are we going to build? So Brad designed this taillight that I really like, but it goes all the way across the car and we can't do that. So I'm taking one side and I'm going to develop each side by itself. And what I want to do, since this is a cyberpunk theme of the car, I think it's very iconic to have that single straight, thick LED bar right through the center kind of it. So all I'm doing is taking Brad's model that he had here, or you could just, create your own, and then I'm just moving it around to match up with the 3D scan of the real life taillight. And then I'm adding a few little features like a side and a tab to where it mounts onto the car. Once I've got that all nice and smooth and looking the way I want it, I just go ahead and export it. I scale it to make sure it's at the right exact size. Then I use Luban to chop it into multiple pieces for me. And then I select two of the 3D printers that I have from my printer farm and send it to print. A couple hours later, boom, I got two halves. And then I plastic weld those two halves together and test them on the car. How are we looking? It fits, that's a plus. But on the left side, we've got a little bit of a weird gap. It's not filling all the space. And on the top edge, there's a little bit of a weird gap too that's not filling all the space. So those are things I want to revise in version 2, which I did not record the modeling of, but I added a back plate so it's not just totally hollow. And I changed those things. So let's test fit version 2. And it fits so good, it literally will just stay in place by itself. It just sits in the car perfectly. And that doesn't even have that alignment dowel. So I'm very, very happy with the external shape. We're filling out the car exactly as it was designed to be. So now I want to add some girth to this thing. I want to make it solid plastic all the way around, really beefy. This is a pass that if it works well, we could put into final production. So I changed the model to make it fully solid, and then I basically recreate the bar that's on the car that goes through there, through the taillight, recreate it the best I can off of my 3D scans, and then I use that and just cut it out of my model, subtract it from my taillight model, so it'll leave that empty void where I think it can be placed right over that bar. And all that 3D scanning, modeling, printing leads us to where we are today with 2 3D printed taillight housings and a lot of pieces. So I think that it's time Kyle and I assemble some taillights. Well, that's a bummer. The first kind of like real solid beefy taillight that we made, it's banging off of this thing. I don't want to cut this up, even though the other side clearly doesn't even have one. I'd really like to not cut it off because it's got this nice bracketry for the grill, and I could also use that to hold the taillight. Once I put it in here though, and I start pushing it back, the bottom section of this starts banging off of that. Now, the weird thing is the bottom section of that is just a thicker version of that, which is the same as this. And this all fits nicely, but I'm noticing it's literally touching this. So I think I need to change a few things in version, I don't know what we're on now, 3 or 4. And I think what I'm gonna do is just make the back a lot thicker and make this upper edge thicker and a lot of this stuff thicker, but I'm gonna leave the bottom of that exactly as it is because I really, really like how it fits and it's nice and tight. So I should be able to do both of those things without hindering any of the other stuff, because that's the fitment that I want, which we had before. So we went a step backwards, I think. Back in the painting side of the world, I wanted to give you guys an update on the secret weapon. It's no longer secret, and we got it figured out. So don't use drywall spackle. Use body filler. If you're trying to do this, if you're 3D printing for an automotive application and you've got seams that you need to worry about, then body fill the seams, make a nice wide line, like about as wide as your hand, over that seam, power sand it and get an averaging. Leave your layer lines, don't worry about the layer lines. Then, get this stuff. You pull 2253. That is the thickest high fill primer that I've ever seen. And you need I would recommend like over 2mm fluid tip on a gun. And you can buy these cheap on Amazon, like a couple bucks, you can buy a spray gun. And that thing will chuck out primer. And if you were to have printed your parts out of ABS plastic or ASA, you could sand this and then you could paint this and you could be done, as far as I know. We're gonna be making molds off of these parts, but this is all this needs is it's finished sanding. We're gonna use like a power sander with an intermediate pad. We'll do 200 and then we'll do 400, and then these pieces are done. You can see how good all these pieces came out. And that's the secret weapon. That's how we're gonna be able to, I mean, you guys, we kind of already did it, but this is how we can, in a matter of about a week, 3D print an entire body kit and have a finished surface on it that it doesn't look like a 3D printed part anymore, that we can then create molds from. The biggest problem one, by the way, out of all of it, you can see that has like the most like crap spots. There's a crap spot here, crap spot here, crap spot here, is the drywall one. Don't use drywall on your car. I have to try these things just in case they're big breakthroughs. I gotta let you guys know. I mean, I have a responsibility to the audience and the world at large, but yeah, that was not a good idea. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was a weird week with getting sick multiple times and all that stuff, but well, the pressure's on, that's for sure. If we keep working at this pace, we will not hit our deadline and we will not have a car that's finished for the show. So I gotta pick up the pace. Kyle's on track. Body work is on track. Fabrication work, off the rails. Off track, off the rails. But I'm gonna kick some ass in this weekend. Maybe a 2-episode week next week. Maybe, I don't know. We'll find out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing and thanks for supporting. We owe it all to you guys. Thank you very much. See you on the next one. Peace!